the weekend, I had the opportunity to chat with Conservative MP for Regina Qu'Appelle, Andrew Scheer. Now, Scheer is a former Speaker of the House under Stephen Harper, and he's the current opposition House leader under interim leader Rona Ambrose. Now, because of his previous role as Speaker, we, the Canadian public, really didn't get to see Andrew Scheer's strengths or his personality. So we chatted about a few things that matter to both of our provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan. We talked about pipelines, the carbon tax, and guns. Just watch.
What we've seen from the Liberals is a constant series of moving goalposts. They've added a whole bunch of new layers to the regulatory process. What the Conservative government had was an evidence-based, science-based approach to approving pipelines. There were objective parameters and criteria, and when projects met those parameters, they were approved. The Liberals have added on new terms like social license. They've put in unnecessary delays with no rationale behind them, and now we're seeing the result of that. Just a few weeks ago, we had layoffs in Regina at Evraz Steel. They make steel for pipelines. Those are real people with real jobs that were paying mortgages and putting their kids through sports and activities, and now they've lost that income for no real reason, just a political, ideological reason. So it's very frustrating as a Western Canadian MP, but also for my friends and family in Eastern Canada as well, in Ontario, knowing that a lot of the gas they're putting in their cars is being refined from oil that's being shipped in from Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. It makes no sense. So I think more and more people are realizing that the Liberals' approach to energy is completely nonsensical and is having a real damaging effect on the economy.
The Trudeau Liberals are talking about a nationwide carbon tax. So in Alberta, that could be something that's overlaid on what we are going to see in effect here. Can you speak a little bit to what that means for the national economy?
Well, look, anytime you increase taxes, you're taking money out of the economy. That's going to have a very real negative effect on jobs, on growth. Canadians are going to pay more for things, so it's really going to be a double whammy, and it couldn't be coming at a worse time for Alberta's economy. With the NDP provincially making things more expensive on the Labour side, federally, Justin Trudeau increasing payroll taxes, it's going to be more expensive to keep people on payroll, and now they're bringing in a resource tax that's going to make the development of our natural resources more expensive as well. So it's very disappointing. It's also a very dangerous approach to federal-provincial relations. You do have provinces that don't support a carbon tax, and the indication is that Trudeau is going to implement this over the objections of those premiers. So double whammy on taxation for Alberta, overriding the concerns of Brad Wall's Saskatchewan party government, which is opposed to the carbon tax, and very bad for the economy. So I think more and more Canadians are going to realize that there are very real damaging consequences to Trudeau's policy, and that's going to have effect on his popularity.
You said that the carbon tax couldn't come at a worse time. Is there ever a good time for a carbon tax? As a Conservative, it's great to hear Conservatives take a strong approach against carbon taxes.
Oh, so I believe there's never a good time for a new tax. I think carbon tax is an intrinsically bad idea. I don't think there's a right time to do it. I'm just noting that if there could be a worse time to do it, this would be it. Certainly, this seems to be almost it's mean-spirited, and this is the problem that we're seeing from the economic approach from the Liberals, that it really does lack compassion. It's driven by ideology. They're not worried about families making ends meet. They're not worried about people who are being laid off in the energy sector. They're beholden to a very radical environmental group that is not based on evidence, is not based on science, not based on fact, and it's very mean-spirited. It certainly lacks compassion for all the people, all the families that are being affected by this downturn in the energy sector.
I wanted to talk to something that is on the hearts and minds of a lot of people in the West, specifically with our strong responsible firearms culture, was the recent banning of the Ruger 1022 magazine. Do you think the RCMP bureaucrats should have that sort of power to be able to turn thousands of law-abiding Canadians into criminals overnight?
I'm very frustrated by this move. I don't have that particular model of 22, but as a responsible firearms owner myself, and for the thousands out there that do own this, this is what we saw with the firearms policy of the previous Liberal government. with a stroke of a pen, making literally potentially hundreds of thousands of people criminals because of a subjective based approach to firearms. What we tried to do in the previous government is bring in evidence-based, objective criteria for classification of firearms, and just because the way something looked, or just because what someone might do, we want to make objective criteria determine which everything from magazines to firearms, which category they would fall into. So I certainly don't think this was an evidence-based move to do anything, and I certainly understand the frustration by all those people who own that particular model, and for people who own other types of firearms who worry what's next. If you're allowing bureaucrats to make these types of subjective decisions, what's next? Today it's this particular model, tomorrow it might be something else that hasn't been a problem up until this point.
Now, Andrew Scheer told me he is seriously considering throwing his name in the hat for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. And I have to say, in talking with him, I was struck by how he is everything Justin Trudeau isn't. He's the anti-Trudeau. Because of his role as Speaker, Scheer is so good on parliamentary procedure, I don't think we would see a Prime Minister Andrew Scheer manhandling anyone during a vote in the House because he doesn't understand simple parliamentary procedure the way Justin Trudeau did during the Elbowgate scandal. Andrew Scheer, despite being an MP for over a decade, is in fact younger than Trudeau, and he thinks there are no good times for new taxes. That's an actual Conservative value, and it's good to hear Conservatives finally talking that way again. Now, Scheer is camera friendly. In fact, his whole family is. I don't like that matters, but unfortunately that's the game the right has to start playing now. And as a mom, here's my favorite part. You know how Sophie Trudeau and her legion of nannies and taxpayer-funded help annoy me greatly? Well, last night I saw Andrew Scheer's wife managing their 5 very young kids all evening without a single nanny or handler in sight. Andrew Scheer is an MP that understands the challenges of real Canadian families. But I don't know if he would shirtless photobomb any weddings on the beach, so he might just have an uphill battle with a state broadcaster should he officially get in the race to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.